My name's Dalia, 33 years old. I've lived in Florida since 2003. I became a police officer for City of Port St. Lucie in 2012, and I've been with them 5 years this August. And presently I am assigned to the traffic unit.
And when did you become interested in law enforcement, and what jobs have you had before you became a police officer? And is this your first time being employed by a law enforcement agency?
Well, my whole life I grew up on the Jersey Shore. I worked in a bar and a restaurant until I was about 19. Then my parents wanted to move down to Florida and retire, and they gave me a choice. They said you could either stay with your older brother in Jersey and go to college up here, or you can move with us. I said, well, I'm tired of the cold, so let's move down south. So when I came down south, I ended up going to Indian River Community College, which is now Indian River State College. I got my associate's degree with the plan that I wanted to transfer eventually for a 4-year degree. After I graduated from IRCC, I actually went to FAU here in Port St. Lucie. And when I sat down with the admissions agent, I really didn't know what I wanted to major in. So he told me, well, we have certain programs here. We have computer programming, we have nursing, teaching, criminal justice. So I said, okay, well, what do I have to do for teaching? And they said, well, you have to go down to Boca Raton and take a bunch of classes. It's a very competitive program. So that was out. Then I asked about the nursing program, and they said, very competitive, that they only have a certain amount of spots, and they have thousands of applicants each year. So that was out. And after I asked about the computer programming, they said, well, you need to go back to the community college to do a bunch of math and science classes. So I looked right at the admissions agent and said, let's check out the criminal justice program. So I ended up enrolling there. And most of my instructors at the time were police officers from, say, Port St. Lucie, who had their master's degree and were going back to teach. So a lot of them got me interested in law enforcement. And then once I graduated from college, I had worked part-time for a security guard for G4S. I ended up going to the police academy on my own in Fort Pierce. And after I graduated from there, I had applied to multiple agencies. I applied to Port St. Lucie, I applied to the Sheriff's Office, I applied to Indian River County, Martin County, Tampa Police Department, a couple agencies in Miami, Florida Highway Patrol, and also the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Orlando. 2009 was such a rough economic time, it was virtually impossible to get a police job. I mean, they were just, places weren't hiring. Port St. Lucie had been on a hiring freeze, and just after that, they ended up laying off a bunch of officers. The Sheriff's Office gave me a conditional letter of employment, and they told me, hey, we can hire you, but it might take a while. I'm like, well, how long will it take? Well, we can either hire you tomorrow or a year from now. Well, lo and behold, the Florida Highway Patrol called me, and they said, hey, we completed everything. The academy starts in 2 weeks. Do you want to go, yes or no? So I said, okay. So I did 2.5 years at the Florida Highway Patrol. And then I had some friends who worked for Port St. Lucie Police Department who kept telling me about, hey, it's such a good agency, we're like a family, you need to come here. So I put my application in, and lo and behold, here I am.
So how long were you FHP then?
About 2.5 to 3 years.
Okay. And you had to go through a whole nother academy for FHP, right? They don't accept the standard police academy. They have their own, and you have to complete that one before you can be an FHP trooper.
Yes, it's called a transitional academy. It's 2.5 months. Basically, you integrate with a class that has already gone through the exact same criteria and program as the regular Florida Law Enforcement Academy. And then it becomes mostly specialized stuff with the Florida Highway Patrol. You do a radar class, a laser class. They teach you computers that they use. They teach you about all the Florida Highway Patrol policies and crash investigations, firearms. In the main academy, they also have you qualify again with the standard issue for the Florida Highway Patrol. So it was a good experience. I mean, it was like 2.5 months in Tallahassee. Only thing is that stunk about it was around Christmas time, so it was 30 degrees below sometimes. And yes, it does snow in Florida, believe it or not. I've seen it.
So, what is your what's your career path? What does it look like for you?
Well, I recently took the sergeant's exam. Unfortunately, I didn't pass, but you know, they say if you fall off the horse, you gotta just get back on, try again. So my aspirations are to become a supervisor eventually. Maybe go back for my master's, possibly either public administration or political science, something that I could just stay in my repertoire from what I learned from my bachelor's degree. But right now I'm being a member of the traffic unit. It's something I enjoy doing. I enjoy doing traffic enforcement. It's just something, it's just my niche. You know, a lot of people joked around when I came here, like, oh, he's a trooper, he'll know how to do, he'll be able to do all of our crashes and all of our DUIs. And when I worked midnight shift, that's what it became. They called me, they're like, hey Dan, we have a DUI, you want to come do this? Or hey Dan, we have a really bad traffic crash, would you like to give us your expertise? So, because I never even considered myself an expert, I said, just what we were, it was just second nature for
well, that's the differences, right, between FHP and city police, or I mean, for the most part, you know, they're mostly responsible for, you know, accidents, fatalities, and specialize in that. Is there a big difference between FHP and the local city polices? I'd
say it's the primary duties. I mean, they could still enforce the same laws, do the same things. Obviously, some agencies are more equipped to do other things. When I worked on the Florida Highway Patrol, I was actually assigned to the Turnpike. We were considered the primary investigatory agency for all of the Turnpike. So it wasn't just doing traffic enforcement and crash enforcement. We would investigate thefts at the plazas, burglaries to vehicles. I have worked fraud cases where we've caught the people who work in the plaza, you know, stealing money over an amount of time. I had one guy we ended up arresting. He stole $3,000 over a 12-month period from Dunkin' Donuts at the plaza. So all the time we would always catch the toll attendants. We'd always do investigations on them where they would do the tricks where they would pretend to either shortchange people, or they would take the money and give the ticket but actually not put the money in the till.
Wow.
And now if something serious would have happened, for example, a few years ago there was a homicide on the Turnpike that a trooper found a vehicle that he thought was abandoned or broken down. Turns out it was a family who was murdered. I think it was a drug related. They ended up calling, I believe, PSLPD and the sheriff's office because they are the ones who had the crime scene. They're the ones who had the investigators and the detectives. It was actually a decision because people said, well, why would the Florida Department of Law Enforcement or the Florida Highway Patrol investigate it? At the time, they made a decision it might just be easier to have a local agency handle the investigation.
Right, because all the resources are localized.
Exactly. Every day, absolutely. I mean, in the 5 years I've been doing this job, I've seen everything from the funny to the sad to the dangerous to the oh crap, what's going to happen moments. I remember there was one time we were looking for a child who ran away from a house. Turns out she was just down the neighbor's street, and the officer I was working with at the time, he knocked on the door of the friend's house. The door opened, and these two giant bull mastiffs just came running out and pounced on the officer and just started licking his face and knocked him down to the ground. Now people were thinking, oh my god, these dogs are attacking this officer. I was sitting there laughing my butt off, and he was laughing too. It was probably one of the funniest things I'd seen in a while. But sometimes, you know, when I pull people over, I always, if it's for speed, I always ask, hey, what seems to be the hurry, or is there an emergency or anything? You know, you'll hear some of the funniest stories. People will say, officer, this is not an excuse, but you're not going to believe this. And I look at them like, try me, I've heard plenty. So, I mean, I've heard excuses, you know, most of the major times the guy wasn't paying attention, or I had to go to the bathroom. And, you know, you get that situation where you pull somebody over and you can tell, yes, they need to go to the bathroom. It's like, okay, gas station's right there, you need to go.
Please.
Oh, I love it here. I mean, compared to where I came from for FHP, the administration's awesome. They treat us great. It's pretty much like a big family. I joke around with my wife. It's like, yeah, honey, I got my older brother in New Jersey, and I got over 250 brothers and sisters here in Port St. Lucie. But I would say anyone who wants to become a police officer, it's very tough. I mean, obviously you got to keep your nose clean. But another thing, a lot of agencies, I know our agency is looking for, is a lot more education or military experience. I mean, one of the reasons why I got hired was the fact that I had a bachelor's degree. I know some agencies, in fact, no, like South Florida, like agencies like Boca, Coral Springs, the Broward area, they actually require, if you don't have prior law enforcement or military, you have to have a bachelor's degree. But I would tell people, even though you have your heart set on working for one agency, apply everywhere. Get your foot in the door, because that's what I did. And then eventually, once you get your foot in the door, and then if you decide, hey, I like this place, I'm going to stay, or hey, I really want to go back to this agency where I really wanted to work, that's when you can apply and say, hey, I worked here for a few years, I have this experience, would you like to hire me? Originally, just putting in applications, going around doing interviews, and for example, one agency would have an application packet that was about 5 pages long. Another agency would have an application packet that was about 60 pages long. I can tell you with the Florida Highway Patrol, from the day I applied and did the physical agility test to the day I was given a hire date was about 7 months. And even then, when I met with the background investigator, he told me, he's like, we are so short-staffed right now, I'm going to do the best I can. But he showed me folders like, you have one of 20 other applicants I'm conducting backgrounds on right now. And then when I went to the academy, I was one of 12 in my transitional class, I think it was, or I'm trying to remember. But long story short, they told me, they're like, you beat 5,000 other people for this job opportunity, so you better be glad to be here. Now start doing some push-ups. The second we got out of our cars and our suits, they had us fall in line up, and even without even saying a word, we were told to drop and start doing push-ups and flutter kicks.
Wow.
I remember when the other guys were telling me when they first got there for their class before we went to transition, the first day they would have everybody line up by their cars and they would look at the cars. If they found any problem with the car, that something was illegal window tint, something wrong with the license plate, something wrong with the lights or the windshield, for every violation they saw, they made you do 50 push-ups. But it's, you know, a lot of people freak out about it, but it's to break you down and just to get you in that condition, because this is a very stressful job. You know, there are times we could just be talking like we are right now, a casual conversation, to next thing you know, there's a hot call and an hour of lights and sirens trying to get there. There are days we'll go from a civil matter to we have a domestic violence incident where somebody's barricaded in the house and somebody says they have a gun. So you never know what you're going to get in this job. I always tell people to drive safe. When I pull people over, if I give them a ticket or a warning, no, I always say please drive safe, because that's our main goal as traffic officers. Is we want people to drive safe. We want to reduce the number of crashes in the city.
Excellent. All right, well, I think that's it for today. This episode.
I'm glad to have everybody here.
Yeah.